Okay, well, we'll jump in. Thank you for coming online to our community talk. We're going to be delving in today, thinking about stories and specifically children's books, and how they can be a really great tool for carers and parents to use to connect with children, and also as a way for supporting them through some tricky life situations. So, a little bit about me. I am Felicity Odgers, and I'm a registered play therapist here at Playroom Therapy. So I provide support for children and families for a whole host of reasons, but I mainly work in a non-directive way with individual children, providing play therapy. At our clinic in Balwyn North. Before I was a play therapist, I was a primary school teacher. So I kind of have been in the world of books and literacy and literature with children for about, goodness, almost 20 years. Oh my, that's a long time. Uh, and when I was a teacher, I largely worked in remote Aboriginal communities in the Kimberley and Central Australia. So I guess I've been thinking about the power of storytelling for a long time, and I've seen how children of really varied backgrounds and language can connect to stories, and it can be a really powerful tool. Importantly, also, I'm a parent of two children, so I read every single day. As always, I'd love to start with acknowledging the land of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people, which we are privileged to meet today. I pay my respects to the traditional landowners, both past and present, and emerging. And yeah, just to give my thanks to the way that they have honored stories, and I really try to embody their wisdom when I am thinking about the power of storytelling and how we can work with children using this wisdom. Okay, so for our goals for today, what I would like to get out of this session by the end is a bit of an understanding about how children's books, why they're important for children and how they work with connection and how they can support families through difficult circumstances. Um, I'd also like to leave you with a bit of a resource list. It can be really overwhelming with so many resources out there. Knowing how to kind of select books that are appropriate for you and your family, and how to use them in a bit of a considered way.
hmm
Beautiful. So, before we jump in, I think it would be a great moment to kind of pause and reflect on what we bring as parents in our own kind of history with books and being read to as children. So, if you would like to just maybe call to mind your favorite book that you loved when you were a child, and have a think about what it was about that book that really appealed to you. Because in doing this, I guess it kind of highlights that there is probably some common themes. But perhaps your favorite book reminds you of the person that read that book to you. It might remind you of, a particular time in your life, a particular place. That holds meaning and connection for you. It could also highlight what was important to you and your family through the characters or the storyline or what it's teaching, the values. Um, when thinking about my favorite book was Possum Magic by Mem Fox, which is a real classic
Classic.
classic of the 80s. Yeah. And I was sort of reflecting on why that book was my favorite. And I think it really had to do with um, my own grandma was sort of coming through in that character of the Grandma Poss. And it always made me feel really connected to her and how, she's not perfect, but they work together and were always like um,
Figure it out.
figuring it out together. Yeah. So I related really a lot to that. Um, Did you want to share a favorite story of yours, Lauren?
I remember, oh my gosh, the Magic Faraway Tree.
Ah, yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And why
My
was
mum
that one important to you?
my mum would read it to me and my brother when we were young.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, and then we'd like play games around, always around the storyline.
Mm.
Yeah, so it was really
Oh,
nice.
yeah, that's a really great point too. I think that it sounds like you were using that book for connection, but also as a way of kind of processing and understanding the world around you, which is similar to how play therapy works as well. So I think that there's a beautiful synergy in, using those metaphors and those storylines to help process and develop play as well. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, let's dive in. So, first up, we're going to look at, I guess I'm seeing like the one that's two major bubbles when we're thinking about the powers of stories. And the first major bubble is connection. We all kind of feel that. We have these memories of when we're being read to. There's a really powerful way of connecting to the people who are reading with us. Um, and connecting to ourselves as well. So I think that, when considering why we're reading to children, this is kind of, the foundation. This is the bread and butter. This is the why we're doing it. And these are sort of the reasons that help connection, be fostered when we're
Hmm.
reading with children. Um, and I guess it's kind of something that is also pertinent to kind of think about is that in today's, you know, onslaught of online resources and messaging that we get as parents, I think it's safe to acknowledge that we often get the message that, connection is really important, and finding ways to connect is kind of what we're always striving to do. But sometimes the pressure to sit down and play with your child is a lot for parents. Finding the time to have, extensive time to play, to, put aside all of the stuff for the day and, be involved in the world of
Together.
child. Yeah,
Mm,
it can be tricky. So I think that acknowledging that connection can come from a myriad of different ways and doesn't necessarily have to be really long, extensive play sessions with children. It can be 10 minutes of reading a book together, you know, resting, not having to
yeah,
be really active. So I find story time particularly connective because it's something that allows me to be regulated. It allows me to feel connection in a really authentic way rather than being like, okay, now it's time that I play with you and I have to be really on and engaged and lots of energy. So,
yeah,
yeah, the invitation is to say that this is a really important way too, and a really effective way to foster that connection. And there's lots of science behind how it does that. So I'm not going to read through all of those points, but I feel like they're quite self-explanatory and maybe felt through this shared experience. Yeah. Okay, so I guess this is the second bubble of how stories are going to help or how we can use them as a tool. And this
hmm,
is more of I guess an intentional way, and it's how we use them as tools to support children or to explain what our values are or help them through a difficult time. So stories provide, I guess, parents a bit of an opportunity to like have a tool to so that they're, I guess, less alone in these kind of gray areas when, your child's suddenly bringing a problem from school that we've never had this before, or there might be a sudden change in your family and, we haven't navigated this before. So what do we do? Usually as adults, we look for where are the resources, what are the tools, how am I going to best use myself in order to help my child to understand or, feel better about this. So it helps us feel, I guess, better equipped. And it does this through a few different reasons. So, the idea of providing a safe distance is something that's also mirrored in play therapy as well. So, when children are playing or pretending, it's like they can look at concepts or they can imagine different outcomes without having to put themselves in that situation or without having to feel the feelings like it's happening to themselves.
Yeah. Without
That
like experiencing it.
Yes, exactly. So stories and books are a really great way of that as well because they're obviously um, putting forward characters or imaginary scenarios where the child can access the meaning or the feelings, but it's not within them. It's not about them. It's about that particular character or that book. So it's a bit more developmentally appropriate,
Mhm.
less triggering, and more engaging for them to have access to those more difficult concepts. It can normalize emotions or challenges, which I think is, really wonderful when children are navigating things for the very first time, for them to feel like, hey, it's actually okay to feel these emotions. I think sometimes through, unintentional messaging or, different emotional programs that they're privy to, sometimes children might unintentionally get the message that, you know, being out of control or being, in sadness or rage, these things are not good, and it's not okay to be in these um,
Emotions, like,
emo.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that there's been a big shift in children's books, especially in the last 10 years, around really kind of providing that psychoeducation around feelings and
Hmm.
normalizing that, that feelings are okay for all genders and to try and like provide a bit more of that inclusivity as well for children. They can model coping strategies. And again, this is kind of like a hand in hand with the normalizing of emotions and creating distance. Because I feel like through stories, they have a bit of an, a, a power where they can make it seem like it's not just you telling them to do this. So I think that we've all had that experience with children when we're kind of trying to teach them directly, like, well, when this happens, you should take some deep
Yeah.
breaths or go and tell the teacher this. And I know certainly I've had that experience where you can see it wash over them or they become resistant to it. So especially when we're considering like, our neurodivergent kiddos who may be a little bit more sensitive to demand or like that need for autonomy, sometimes that direct teaching is too much. They need that space, and they need that validation that can happen when we're looking at things from a distance. Yeah, and the last one is strengthening brain development. So we're going to have a little look about what that actually means and how the brain is affected
Hmm.
through shared stories and connecting in that way. But I think that the main takeaway message that I would love for you to get through this, thinking about this bubble of support, is that it's when we avoid difficult topics, we're not stopping, we're not protecting the children from the pain. So it's like I'm by facing it together, we give them strength is I guess the invitation to using books. Yeah, and that we can't shield children from pain, but we can sit beside them. So, in order to do this work and use stories and shared reading to navigate difficult things with children, there's a few things to consider. But I guess the biggest one is that it's about sitting with and not, I guess, not needing to be perfect, not having the big perfect lesson or having the message land exactly perfectly, but just showing up and connecting
Yeah.
is enough. Okay, so the neuroscience. So here's a bit of like, I guess, information about how the brain works, and how specifically reading to children is actually benefits it. Like we all hear that, we need to read from children from a young age. We get told this at maternal health, visits and in
Yeah.
mothers groups,
Yep.
reading to our babies since day one. Um, and we get a general idea like, yeah, it must be pretty good for them. But we're not really sure exactly how or what's going on there. So here's a little bit of a breakdown. It's not even the complete story with the brain. But in terms of what it's actually doing, is that, childhood is a time of enormous development, and children are building connections really rapidly. So especially in the centers of like language centers, emotional regulation, memory, and social understanding, these are the big parts of the brain that is working when we're reading to children. So the language centers are activated when children hear and process new words, sentence structures, um, storytelling, and rhythms. The prefrontal cortex, so that's responsible for attention, planning, emotional regulation, all that logical thinking. Um, that's working when they have to follow a storyline, anticipate outcomes, or reflect. It's also improving their working memory every time they have to follow along with a story. And then another major system is like the social system, that can be stimulated through what's called mirror neurons. So I love to talk a little bit more about mirror neurons because it helps
Mhm.
them connect with what the characters are feeling, which lays the groundwork for empathy, which is obviously a huge thing for children to develop.
Yeah.
But mirror neurons also play a huge role in attachment. So attachment is, you know, I'm sure what we've all heard is that, we want to build a strong attachment between caregivers and children in order to support them throughout their life. The way that we relate to children can form a bit of a blueprint for how they relate to others as they grow. So, quite an important cornerstone of, what our role is as parents and caregivers. Also, luckily, through lots of research, we know that it's about being good enough in our attachment, and that, being attuned is, or attempting to attune is the main driver. And again, children don't need perfect responding, they don't need perfect parenting. They are, yeah, they're in relationship to us, and that's going to have ups and downs like all relationships. But ways that shared reading helps with attachment, is that it releases oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, through proximity, and through promoting a sense of safety in the relationship. It uses mirror neurons again by using shared focus. So when we're focusing on something together, our brains are kind of wired to connect. So when you're looking at a book and showing delight or wonder or joy at something and you're letting that come through in your expression, the child's mirror neurons will be firing, which will also in turn make that reflect in their nervous system and in their expressions as well. So that strengthens relationships, but it also, yeah, strengthens that ability to connect to others and to have empathy. It's pretty wild.
It's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, mirror neurons are really great. And it's that reason, like you've seen those videos where, if a baby sees like a photo of someone crying, their little face will drop too, and
Yeah,
they're
okay, yeah,
building
yeah.
those mirror neurons. Another sort of similar way that works is through developing a theory of mind. Um, so the idea of theory of mind is something that develops in children where they're able to connect in and understand that characters and other people have thoughts, feelings, and perspectives that are different from theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not something that children are born with. In fact, it develops over time and, at different paces. Some children have this very strong, other children really struggle with being able to figure out what the other person is thinking and feeling. So when we use a book, um, we have an added power to be able to stop and reflect on that. So it's like kind of giving a child a bit of the power of the narrator. So I'm thinking like if you were at school or something and you were trying to help a child connect, it wouldn't be easy to like stop and go, hey, like I'm wondering what that person's thinking or that person's thinking something different to you. Sometimes we can do that, but often we can't. But with stories, it allows us to be able to do that so that they can slow down and really develop that theory of mind. Another way is that it helps children process stress and trauma because of that symbolic distance that we talked about. They can access more difficult topics in a safe way, in a more indirect way, so that they've got that ability to have that space to process the emotions that come up in a regulated, framework. Also, related exposure to story-based metaphors can help rewire neuroresponses so that stress can be relieved and they can build emotional literacy. So this is done when language is used to regulate. So when adults name emotion during books, you could say things like he looks nervous, or his hands are looking really tight, he might be feeling really angry. We're building children's emotional vocabulary, and we're kind of putting those blocks together to lead them to a more regulated place. So it starts
Okay.
off with first giving them the language and the understanding. We move towards like co-regulating as well, like using our nervous systems to help, those mirror neurons fire so that they're feeling more calm. And with repeated exposure, what we're hoping is that they build those emotional regulation skills so that they can use that through their life. Okay, does that make sense? Do you
Yeah.
have any questions? Okay, beautiful.
No, that's good.
Wonderful. Um, yeah, and as I said, I'm sure there is lots of more ways that books are helping the brain at all times. Yeah, especially, when I think back to teaching, that's like a whole other bubble where we're building cognitive skills and things like that. So we're really staying within like the emotional centers of the brain.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I was thinking about what books can actually help with, like what situations we would use them in, I started to think of so many. Is- They can be used so widely and basically for everything. Another thing I wanted to add too, with like obviously we're talking today about how we can use books that are already made and published.
Hmm.
But in thinking about the individual needs of your family, there may come times where there's a need that's not on this list. It might be just so specific to your family. And I just invite you to still use these techniques. And you could, make a book. You could use the computer to like put some images together. A PowerPoint presentation would work the same to create that symbolic distance.
Hmm.
And it may even be, better because you could tailor it to kind of suit the needs of your child. So,
Yeah.
here are some things that books can help with. Yeah, grief and loss. It can be like a pet, a family member, a friend, loads of things. Anxiety can mean like social anxiety, performance anxiety, bedtime anxiety. These are just really broad concepts that can be covered with a whole bunch of things. One thing that I guess comes up with these really difficult things is that often these things are not just affecting the child in your family. It's very likely that if your child is feeling anxiety around something, then you possibly also share that anxiety.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and also really kind of heavy things like bullying or friendship issues. They are felt obviously very strongly with children, but I know as a parent, they can be really triggering
Absolutely.
conversations too.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess this is where the challenge comes in too, because we have to, as parents, have the courage to acknowledge what our child is giving us, but then we also have to sit with what it's bringing up in us, and we
Mm-hmm.
have to do that work of like, okay, this is something that I have to work through and deal with. I'm feeling overwhelmed by this experience, and I know that I can show up for my child um, in this way. And, books are a great thing because that allows you that safe distance as well, to kind of read the words that someone's already written and, get the benefit from being able to stay within your window of tolerance, be able to maintain your, feelings without spilling over. Um,
Yeah, and projecting it onto them.
yeah, yeah. And it's, of course, it's not a simple thing because I guess showing up in our authentic selves with our children is what builds that attachment. And when children kind of recognize, like, oh my goodness, mum is being really weird, like she's talking in a weird voice or she's hiding something, they know those mirror neurons fire again, and they're like, ah, I know she's actually feeling worried too, or she's feeling really upset that this has happened, or she's scared as well. Um,
Mm,
and so I guess there's power in being able to sit with that and show that in a control, like still in control.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it kind of shows to the child like, oh, these things are normal, and even mum feels these things, and mum's showing me how I can move through them as well. Um,
Mm,
yeah, so I really acknowledge this is the challenge because all of these things are happening. If they're happening in your family, they're happening to you too. And it's not about being perfect or showing up and being like a therapist, being able to navigate everything and hold everything and put it aside at the end. You're in it as well. So it is not about being perfect, but just about trying to connect and acknowledging the very, very real heaviness and hardness that comes when you're a grown up trying to help someone that you love so much with some of these really difficult things. Okay, so with that in mind, let's sort of jump in and see how we can support in navigating this process of before, during, and after reading with children, and kind of nutting out some of the considerations that we need when we're trying to get the optimal kind of juice
mm-hmm.
out of books and reading. So these things are helpful. So firstly, like how we select books, we're going to have a little look at that. We need to consider things like what we're going to read to children, when is the best time, how often, where, what is likely to have the best outcome for your kids, and it's not the same for everybody. So yeah, things like some people love to snuggle and read first thing in the morning. Other people will have like very chaotic mornings and they would never be able to carve out a little bit of that piece. And maybe at the end of the day is better for them. So it's not a one size fits all, but it's just a matter of like thinking about what might work, and being able to reflect and shift things if you give something a go and like, oh, they really didn't connect with that. They were too tired before bed last night. Let's try and shift things or wiggle things around so that we have a better chance of getting some connection or some understanding through this book. Another thing is offering choice too. I think sometimes when we have this idea like, oh, we want to read this one particular book and this is like the big special one, sometimes we can put too much like I guess like too much energy into it, and it can be a little bit confronting for children where they're like, "Oh, she really wants me to read this one book," and I don't know, that feels like kind of uncertain. Like I don't know why this is happening. It feels different to the normal programming. So sometimes having like a book that you might, want to put forward just in a pile of other books and be like, oh, we can choose something from here. I wonder, what you might like to choose. Um, Again, offering choice can help with children to feel like they have autonomy in the process, and that this is something that they're doing in partnership with you and not just something that you're doing to them or for them. Yeah, to really get that sense of connection, I guess, and buy-in from kids. It's important to kind of think about the space, and also, I guess that's linked with the time as well. So, where and when this is going to be best. Considerations that I have to think about as well is siblings. If this is a situation where we can have a group read, or, maybe depending on the age of your children, one sibling might be a little too young for the context, and therefore may not, be able to sit through the book. Um, yeah, just maybe set an intention of what you want out of the reading. If you want to just connect and have a lovely time, then maybe siblings, that would be wonderful. But if you're wanting to sort of drill down and provide some understanding around validating emotions or normalizing different experiences, then perhaps having some one-on-one time is a better option. Um, yeah. Lastly, on the structuring of the time,
Hmm.
um, this is this is sort of like what we say before we read a book, um, and it can be different each time. But I guess it gives the child predictability. If you say something like, "Oh, we're going to read one book tonight," and we've got 10 minutes to read this book, and when we're finished the book, we might have a snuggle and then go and have a bath, whatever's next. So giving them a predictable structure of what's going to happen, um, it just helps with them being able to stay regulated. So they're not wondering like, oh, maybe we're reading 10 books, maybe we're going straight to sleep, maybe this is something different. So just what we say to give them a predictable, um, I guess, idea
Like
of
know
what's
what's
going on.
coming. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So is anything sort of jumping out at you, um, as we're going along now? Any questions or,
No, it's all good.
wonderings?
So good. So far, so good.
Okay, wonderful. So this is what we consider when we're selecting books. Um, I think one of the main things I also want to say is that there is absolutely no need to go out and buy books, especially, childhood is complex and kids bring stuff all the time and different things every week. And so if we were racing out and buying, a fabulous narrative on this particular issue one week, by the time it arrives, there's a new issue. And so we can get into this mindset of like needing more and more and more. Again, I'll go back to finding alternatives. You could go to the library. There's also like some really good kind of groups online that have, um, share like they share resources like what their children are reading, what's helpful for them.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And also YouTube can sometimes have read along
Yeah.
books as well. I want to just flag that as like it is great when we really want a story that we can have access straight away in the moment. Um, I guess if we're just using the YouTube every time, it might detract from that.
Sharing the book rather than watching YouTube.
And having your voice, so your voice
Yeah.
reading to the child and being able to connect and do all of that stuff is kind of taken from that. One way I kind of counter that is sometimes if I'm using a video of the book, is I will just turn the sound, like I'll mute it. So it's just the person turning the pages and I'm reading the page from the screen so that it's still my book, not my voice reading the book, and I can stop, pause the video and talk when I want to, which is, I guess, yeah, just trying to make it a little bit more book-like than video-like, like more involved than and less passive. But certainly videos are great as well. They're definitely a good tool to use too. So here's just I guess, a checklist about how to figure out what is appropriate. So when considering the age of your child, things like the length of the book is really kind of a good thing to consider, like if they can actually sit through that, if it's very complicated language or really kind of conceptual ideas. That could be a little bit tricky for younger kids to reach to. And then having more like simple or direct language books might be better for them. Similarly, older children are not likely to connect with things that are too simple. So trying to find that sweet spot can be tricky. Um, Emotional safety is a good consideration. So I guess finding that book that acknowledges difficult feelings without it being overwhelming. Um, and one way we can do that is to get books where the struggle is experienced like through the character and not talking directly to the child. Like some books are quite informational in their presentation, and others are like 100% in the story. Like this happens to this character, and this character is talking and feeling the things. Those sorts of stories have a little bit more emotional safety kind of built into them than if
Hmm.
they're like more informative. Um, and also having a hopeful tone seems important as well. Um, yeah, or some resolution or coping at the end is a good thing to consider. The relatability of the characters. So things like if the characters are of similar age, gender, culture, that sort of thing for the child, they might be able to relate a little bit more easily. Um, and
So
also,
can I ask a question? So would you then recommend always like if we get a new book, just say that we should read it first before reading it with the kids?
yes, I would
Yeah.
recommend that. Um, Definitely, actually. I think that's a really important kind of first step is to read the book first. Um, I'm thinking back to a time when I was teaching where I didn't do that and I picked up a book. I think it was called I can't even remember what it was called, but it was essentially a book about a child who lost a pet.
Yeah.
Um, and
There's
I
so many books like that.
Yes, but this particular one really got to me on the day, and I actually couldn't get through the book. And
Oh,
so, and I was very, upfront with my class of,
yeah.
little kids, but I was like, I actually choose to not read this today. This is too much for me because I felt that sense of like, whoa, this was a
Over my
surprise.
head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what was important that children had emotional safety, and if
Yeah.
I couldn't hold that space for them, um, then yeah,
Yeah. They'll
I
model your
didn't power
behavior.
through. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So what age would you do that till?
And well, I guess it depends on
Yeah, the child.
the child and also the intention too. So what is it that you're hoping to get what you're hoping the child gets out of it. Suppose if you're reading for enjoyment or reading for connection or reading for entertainment,
Hmm.
it would be less important for you to like read and understand all of everything. You could have like a general sense of like, this series of books have these themes in it and
Yeah.
that seems to be okay. Um, but if you're really wanting to, help a child navigate through grief or loss or something like that, like the death of a pet,
Yeah,
um,
that's obviously, yeah,
yeah, because
quite
also,
different. Mm.
yeah, and what happens is if these books do land, like if the message in the books land with the kids, um, you're likely to see things come up and surface. So if
Yeah.
you're not across that, you're likely to maybe miss it or see, yeah, like misinterpret that natural processing as, maybe tricky behavior. Um, so I guess, yeah, it is important to kind of know and be like, okay, my kiddo's reading, whatever it is in the latest series of such and such. I know that this has like some tricky themes about death and, or like separation or identity, whatever it is that's coming up for your kids. And maybe they're going to be making some connections here. So if I am across this, um, I can have that shared language with them. I can talk to them about it. I can be that safe place that um, they know that I know this story, so they can talk to me and we can figure it out together.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I guess it just is. It's hard, I know, because when you have an older child,
Yeah.
um, they may have moved a little bit through that needing, the bedtime story, or like um, they're not often coming to you anymore with this desire to be read to. Um, but I think it's important to like allow them to understand that as well. Like it's a shared understanding. Like if you read it together, and they know that you know. So that they're able to talk to you about it if they need.
If they need to, yeah.
Mm.
Find it hard with the older ones now that at school they get given books to read for schoolwork and it's sometimes quite overwhelming.
Mm. Yeah, it's a, I can understand this too because I think that as children get older, especially in school too, because there's lots of things going on for different kids,
Mm,
and in the hope to engage children, they have to give them books that are like out there for their age.
yes, yeah.
But that does come with themes that could be
They're
things
quite
that
confronting.
yeah, like things that your kids might be still figuring out, like,
Yeah.
especially things around identity or friendships if they're in that particular age where friendship and identity is the core tenet of what they're processing and figuring out. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so and I guess like it's not about being, available to read every single thing that your child brings home from school, um, especially when they're independent readers. But I guess like you can get online and figure out what books are about, what's in them, and
Yeah, and
maybe
kind of
like
prepare them for it. Mm,
yeah, prepare them for it, and also like maybe read certain parts together that
okay.
um yeah. And I guess like depending on your teacher as well, like how open they are to working with you on that, like saying these are some things that I'm concerned about with this book. How are we ensuring that my child has emotional safety through this?
Mm-hmm.
How are we building in these things so that um, they're able to stay regulated through this?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in the school context. um, does that make sense to you? Does
Yes.
that answer your question? Okay, beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess another, in a similar vein, one really important thing is um, like the diversity of books and
Yeah.
being inclusive, um, especially as children grow. Like ideas around gender and gender stereotypes seem to be big in books,
Mm-hmm.
and having that consideration around, if my child is only reading books about fairies, is this going to be something that is engaging, but also is it doing the job of giving them a really broad understanding of
Yeah.
these concepts that we're trying to
That we're faced with or whatever's going on. Yeah.
yeah. Another thing about it is being adaptable. Like it's as books get longer, it gets trickier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but some stories can be shortened, I guess, and paraphrased or expanded depending on their energy needs. So instead
Mm-hmm.
of just like we're going to read this whole book or we're going to read this whole chapter, um, maybe choose a book where it could be like a series of short stories or things that you can just connect into. Um, like little graphic novels, maybe sometimes are great for older kids where they can just see like a little concept or a snippet rather than having to, I guess, digest the whole story or the whole book in order to get the meaning from
The
it.
message. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so now moving on to like what we do during story time or what to consider with the actual doing of it. Um, I guess, the biggest thing is thinking about like connection or teaching. Um, and we don't have to turn everything into like a perfect teachable moment. In fact, I think that most kids want to sit firmly in that connection bubble rather than that teaching bubble. So when parents like lean strongly into that, we're here to learn, we're going to do this thing and we're going to face our fears or whatever it is that you're hoping to get out, children may have some resistance to that, and that's okay. It's a bit of a dance. It's a dance between the bubbles. I'm not sure why I'm using the bubble analogy today, but but like, dipping into, we can do a little bit of learning and teaching. Oh, but we go back into just, reading and being together and
Yeah.
connecting. Um, and sort of swinging between those is fine. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can
Okay.
be a bit of a both. And to do that, the biggest thing is to try and be present. So easy to do. Um, yeah, but if we can like center ourselves before we do any of this structuring or yeah, supporting, that's a really, great way that we can attune to ourselves and attune to our child so it's more successful. Another way is like letting the child lead or letting the child have as much autonomy or participation as possible. So letting them turn the page, um, like choose when to pause, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, reading with tone and expression is always lovely. Pausing for conversations and allowing the child to kind of interrupt with their own conversation or their own question or viewpoint throughout is great. Validating feelings and acknowledging that emotions may come up, making connections with the story. So I think that this is the trickiest part. So when we have like a story that could be about family separation, how do we read this story and in our own adult understanding going, well, this is, something that this child is working with
Yeah.
potentially. How do I bring that into the consciousness of the child? And do
Mm-hmm.
I even need to? So
Like,
sometimes
do I point it out or not?
yes, exactly. So
Okay.
this is like it's the dance again. So how much do we just here's the story, here's the words, this character was feeling sad, I felt like that before too. Or how much do we like go, oh, this is making me think about my family. Like this
Mm.
seems like pretty similar. Um, and I guess this is where attunement comes in. So, how can you attune to your child and figure that out? Are they in a space where they're open to like decreasing that emotional distance or that symbolic distance a little bit to putting their own life in this story a little bit? Or are they just so not there today that it's
Like wasted, kind of not the right time.
yeah, the power is in staying in the metaphor. So it's not wasted in that they're not going like they're making the connection isn't the imperative part of supporting kids. In fact, what play therapy teaches us is that when children stay in that metaphor or in that pretend world, or they have, they're playing out things that's just to do with those pirates or that home corner thing, whatever they're doing in the playroom, that is just as powerful in helping them process what's going on for them than if, as a therapist, we said, well, this makes me think about you. There's sometimes in the playroom where that is appropriate and that we can go there with children,
Yeah.
but but often the power is in letting them stay in that metaphor. Um, so it is totally okay to keep to keep all of your reflections and all of your conversations based on characters and not make the connection. But if you do choose to make a connection, how do you do that in like a gentle way without triggering the child into overwhelm? It,
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard, and it comes down to knowing your child and what they can handle in the time. Um, Allow for repetition, which can sometimes be hard. So if children want to read the same book over and over again, I think this happens more in the younger years, can drive you a little bit bananas, but sort of like allowing that to happen, and understanding that they're getting something new or different out of it each time, like kind of trusting the process of the child.
So why do
Um,
they do that?
well, it could be that that they're processing things. So each time they read that story, they could be like decreasing a little bit of that symbolic distance. They could be understanding more about like, hey, this character feels like me, like I am the same as this character. So they want to read it again and again to sort of figure out what that means for them.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, reading books and playing are very similar. It's like how children play out things over and over again. It's to figure things out or to feel it. They want to feel those emotions again because it's safe to feel it when they're reading or they're playing rather than just in real life.
Okay.
So it's yeah, it could be like they're trying that on or they're getting something from it. It could be like it's reassuring to them. It might have a hopeful tone. So anytime that they're feeling anxious, they can reach for this book as a way to regulate. It might have something that they're needing, like feelings of control or power. Yeah, there's lots of reasons why they might keep going back to it. But usually children do things over and over again because it feels good for them, um, or yeah, or that they're processing something in order to grow into the next stage of development. Yeah. Okay. So, oh, with this in mind, I was going to do a little example of the Goodbye book. Have you seen this book before?
No,
Okay, so perhaps I'll read this book to you. I'm just realizing that you can't see me, so I might stop
I
sharing.
can see you.
Oh, you can see me.
Yeah.
Okay. Hmm. That's fine then. You can see me. That's okay. I can't see me, but that's all right. I will just read
But
this.
the book's blurry that you're holding up.
Oh no. Okay. Oh, because I've got the blurred thing, the blurred
Yeah.
background. What if I hold it like this? Still blurry?
Yeah. Your face
Hmm.
isn't, but the book is.
Okay. Hang on. What about if I do zoom? Hmm. Sorry about this. I'll try and figure it out. If I go
You
to
trying
the
to take the background off, the blur?
yeah, I'll try. There we go. I'll unblur.
There you go.
There you go. Great. All right. So let's read the Goodbye book. So I'm just going to pretend that, um, we're reading this book, that you're a child and I'm, helping you through this.
Okay.
This would be a book that I would read a younger child, because it has really simple illustrations and really like one sentence. So
Yeah.
I'm already thinking like it's very easy to understand. It's not very conceptual. It's very direct. It's saying you can feel this, you can feel that. So it's talking to the child, but because it's about fish, there's like a
Mm-hmm.
little fish. There's some emotional distance here. Um, so I would choose this book for maybe two and up, like maybe 2 till 6, I would
Mm-hmm.
say for this. Um, yeah, and I would be thinking about um, the themes of maybe grief or loss or yeah, even maybe even friendship issues. So anything that has an element of loss to it.
Okay.
So I would say something like, "Oh, I found this book for us to read. It looks very interesting. What do you think this book might be about?" Um, and they might say fish, which is a good. You'll be like, yeah, I can see a picture of a fish on here, and I might say something like, oh, I can see that this fish, when there's a picture like this and there's some little dots joining up, it's telling us that this fish is thinking about this, and I can see this fish is thinking about a green fish. Maybe this is a little friend or someone that this fish knows, but that green fish isn't there with them anymore. And this fish is crying. I think this fish is feeling sad because this fish is not here anymore. So already just giving them a little bit of like
What's it about?
keying them in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, and also the book's called The Goodbye Book. Maybe this fish has said goodbye. Goodbye can be hard sometimes. Um, all right, and then I'll start to read. I might not read the whole book just based on time, but I'll start reading. Oh, can you see?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, these fish are happy together. Oh, but this one says it's hard to say goodbye to someone. Oh, now the fish is all alone and it's crying. So because I'm talking in my mind to a really younger
Yeah,
child, I'm
yeah,
being
yeah,
really
yeah.
explicit.
Yeah.
Ah, you might not know what to feel. Hmm, this person and this dog and this fish are all looking uncertain. They don't know. They don't know what to feel. And there's a card on the table. What do you think might have happened? Maybe the fish died. Oh, you might be very sad. Oh, you might be very mad. Oh, this fish is shouting. I know it's okay to be bad sometimes. And if you wanted to shout because you were feeling really mad, that would be okay to do here. So that's like a little making a connection.
Yeah.
You might not feel like talking to anyone. Oof, this fish has got its eyes closed. It's not even looking at that person. It wants to be alone. You might even feel like hiding. Oh, can you see these little fishes hiding in its um
House. House
house?
castle.
Yeah. It's hiding away. I wonder, I felt like this before where I've really wanted to hide. I wonder like where we could hide in this house if we wanted to be on our own. Maybe the cubby house might be a good spot. Mm. Things might not seem fun anymore. This fish didn't want to go to the birthday party. Must be feeling really sad. Didn't want to do that. You might not feel like eating. You might not feel like sleeping. You might try to stop thinking about it. Oh, it's listening to music so that it's thinking about what it really likes to do, its music. Or you might even pretend it didn't happen. Mm. Do you know what? I'm thinking about these things too. And I think that they're okay to do. Sometimes you might want to break from thinking about things that are hard. And it's okay to listen to music. Maybe we could even like take our dog for a walk. That's what I like to do when I want to think about other things. You might be confused. Confused is a bit of a feeling that happens where you're not really understanding what happened. I can see this dog is going, hmm? Hmm? Dogs do that when they're confused. They doesn't know what happened. Hmm. So that was a little bit of like teaching about emotions.
Hmm.
But eventually you'll start to feel better. So here's where the book turns hopeful.
Hmm.
So I would change my tone and make my reflections a little bit more about like, this is the core of what I'm trying to get to you. We're reading this. I want you
Yeah.
to understand these things. So you remember how you laughed. Maybe you could make some memories of things that happened that were really funny. You'll remember all the fun that you had. You could look at photos, or like we could, yeah, look at books that we had together. You'll have days where you feel up and days where you feel down. And being up means feeling happy, and feeling down means feeling sad. And that's okay. Sometimes you could be feeling all of those things in one day. You remember the special times. You remember everything that you learned together. You might feel like talking to someone and you might feel like drawing a picture. These are some really good things to remember, actually, because they're going to help when we feel sad or mad or confused about what to do. Talking to someone, I wonder, like, this is something that we can do together. If you're ever feeling like this little fish, I can be this dog that comes and listens to you if you need to have a little chat about how you're feeling. And we could even draw a picture together or do some of these. We might wonder where they went or what they're doing. And we could chat about that and wonder that together. Most of all, you remember how much you love them and how much you miss them. And I'll be feeling that too. You'll go on and try to be brave. Oh, that fish is near a cat. That fish might be a bit worried about that cat. And you'll remember that you will always be someone to love and hold. that there will always be someone to love and hold you tight. Hmm. Again, I think this is me in this picture because I'll always be that person that can love and hold you tight if you need. So that's the goodbye book. That book's made me feel a little bit sad about all the people that I've had to say goodbye to. I'm wondering if you're feeling that too. Maybe you might like a little cuddle. I'll stop the demonstration there and turn into my adult self again. Um, so what did you notice about when I was reading that? Did anything come up in terms of how I read or how much I stopped and reflected?
Like just the calmness and trying to help them relate to it. You ask them questions about it to try and maybe gather their thoughts or feelings on what was happening.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and it was kind of, I guess, getting that sense of that dance as well. Like, how much do I put into, like, there were times in that
Yeah.
book where I was very explicit in that, like, this is like us.
Yeah.
And there were times where I was like, look at this fish. That's such a fish. Like, this is what this fish is thinking. So
Yeah.
it's like delicate dance between like staying in the metaphor and making the connections with the text. Um, okay, I got to go back here from current slide. Beautiful. Okay, so afterwards, after we read, um, there's things to consider with that too. So I guess like the main thing is allowing the processing time. So having children have some quiet moments to sit with the story, not necessarily rushing to the next activity,
Mm-hmm.
and even just allowing them to sit in silence is powerful. You can invite conversation but not force it. So you can ask gentle questions like, "Oh, I wonder what you liked about that story," or did anything feel a bit tricky to you? And oftentimes, if you get nothing back with those questions, it's fine to leave it. Or another thing is to reflect on you. So in creating a bit of distance, sometimes direct questions are too close, and using yourself to be the distance. So you could say like, I thought about this, or this reminded me of this time. So again, it's like giving them a little bit of a stepping stone
Mm-hmm.
towards themselves by putting it on you. That can really help as a tool. And just keep it light if they're not ready to talk, obviously. You can validate and reflect their feelings, acknowledge that it could have been a bit scary or worrying, and that it's okay, that it's not about fixing the problem or changing the feelings, but really kind of communicating that it's okay to feel those things and that you are there to figure it out with them or be with them through that. Another really good thing for after the text is encouraging play or creative expression. And this doesn't mean like setting up elaborate art activities that link to the text or like, oh my gosh, who's got the time? But I guess like again, just attuning to your child and seeing if they're playing out things or if the way that they're, you know, whatever they like to play, if they're drawing things that are a little bit more thematic or um, if they're doing pretend play, if there's things coming up in that's kind of making you feel like they're processing some of this stuff, let them do that in their own way is a really great thing to do. Um, and again, like staying in that metaphor would be helpful for play. Um, yeah, so I think that is about like making that connection with after the text.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Reinforce that comfort and safety. So offer reassurance, predictable routines. Um, if you're reading before bed and you do a heavy one, like, you know, the goodbye book, perhaps having like a shorter, lighter one to seal that experience off might be helpful. As I said, like notice behavioral responses. Um, so if a child is playing out themes or playing out concepts that they're working through with books, it's good to stay curious about their behavior rather than correcting them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it may be part of them working through the story rather than necessarily them wanting to, embody this, evil character or whatever it is that they're processing. So keep the door open. Let your child know that they can come back to the story anytime. Have the story accessible to them, like, with proximity, and let them know that you can read it again if you want to. And yeah, because as we said, like it deepens the experience each time. Um, so in sort of yeah, in sort of kind of like sealing this off, I think that it's really important to think about what challenges might come up with this process of reading to children, um, and how we can navigate these challenges. So, one of the biggest ones is the child's engagement, like what to do if a child just isn't interested in what you're wanting to read to them, or they
Mm-hmm.
get distracted or restless, or they might even just run off, like they're very avoidant of it.
Mm-hmm.
Or alternatively, if they only want to read their favorite story every time and they never want to read any other story other than this story.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess like to deal with that challenge, firstly, we need to manage our own expectations, and to trust a little bit in the process of the child. It's okay to go at the pace of the child. I know it's sometimes hard to sort of put our own motives aside and say, okay, they're showing me that this, like if I showed the goodbye book and they're like, I don't want to read that book, that's a sad book. I
Yeah.
don't want to do that. Um, that's totally okay. And that gives you really rich information about how much that child is holding about that particular comment, about that particular
Topic.
theme. Yeah,
Yeah.
topic. So there's other ways that you could come in with it. You could just have the book open. You could just look at the pictures. Um, yeah, you could just, leave it and try a couple of days later. Um, you could see if their sibling was open to reading it in like the same area that they're, so they're kind of like listening in, but not like having to be too
Participate in
involved.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Just like a slowly, gently approach with building engagement. Similarly, if the emotional reaction, so if a child responds really emotionally to to the story, that can be really hard. Um, I think sometimes parents worry about making it worse by bringing the themes to the forefront, or
Mm-hmm.
making, if a child's sad, they're going to be sadder. If they're worried, they're going to be more worried if we acknowledge these things. Um, but at the core of that is trusting in yourself to be able to hold the feelings and remembering that it's not your job to change the feelings. You're not trying to minimize that child's discomfort with this book, but rather like showing them that you can handle it, that you can sit through those feelings with them, and that they're navigatable.
Yeah.
um, yeah. Another thing to consider about with kind of that emotional responses and how we support afterwards is sensory regulation. So using sensory things to get children back in their window of tolerance after a big emotional response. So things like swinging could be a good idea once you've had that big emotional response. Like, oh, that was a really big book. Oh my God, I'm feeling a lot of feelings about that book. I think we should go and have some time on the swing. Like have that sensory push back and forward is really regulating. Or you might
Okay.
have like Play-Doh or something body, like doing something
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
body, go the monkey bars or something, to get them back into their regulation stage of mind. Um, so another challenge is like to do with parental challenges. So feeling unsure about how to explain difficult things in child-friendly ways, struggling to validate without fixing is a big one that, we all lean towards. Or parents feeling uncomfortable with their own feelings when they come up. So similar to that example of when I was reading that story about the pet dying,
Yeah.
I was uncomfortable with how affected I was by that story. So that was a challenge that I had to navigate and
Yeah.
shift because of. Um, so this is another reason why it's really important that you know what you're going into first. So you've read the text and you understand what might come up for you, that you've been able to put some supports in place for you so that you're regulated, and that you have like a bit of a clue about what to do if a tricky question comes up, kind of being on the front foot a little bit. Connection difficulties. So this is when sometimes we can put our desire to teach before the desire to just connect. And there is it can easily shift into like a teachable moment or a lesson instead of a shared experience. So being able to sit in that reflective space and wondering like, how is this landing for my kid? Are they feeling connected or are they feeling lectured? It's like, how do we like shift it back into like an enjoyable bonding experience above all, because that's the way that the message is going to be able to get in. And practical barriers like lack of energy, lack of time, especially if we're trying to do this in stressful times.
Hmm.
So, with this in mind, I think that sometimes when families or children are experiencing a crisis, like when they're in it, like where they're in the big dysregulation of whatever's occurring for them, it would be really hard for them to create enough distance to look at those things. So it is actually okay to plan that and be like, okay, my kid's having a really hard time with bullying right now. Getting a whole bunch of books from the library about bullying while they're in that space is
Too
probably
much.
going to be
Mm,
very, very triggering because they're they're still in that active stage of seeking safety. So that book would be, I guess, like threatening that sense of
yeah.
safety. So planning when to give these books, and I know like you'd be very all parents would be wanting to like get in there, get in the front foot and do some supporting, but the connection is the support in that time, in that crisis time, and the learning and the validating can happen when there's emotional safety later on. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Okay, wonderful. And again, I just wrote a little note about like sibling dynamics being tricky to navigate too is part of like a practical or a practical barrier.
Hmm.
So having a plan and kind of thinking about everyone and like what to do with interruptions. The last one is follow through. So parents might not know what to do after reading, and children may revisit themes later with behavior, and parents might feel a bit unsure on how to deal with that. This is a classic reason, I guess, to connect with a therapist. So, play therapists are trained to respond to behaviors and things that are coming up, with children in this way. So if you're ever unsure, you could book a parent session with any of the therapists at our work, or yeah, just reach out to see if it's something that we can support with, because certainly, yeah, it's definitely, parents are not trained therapists, and it's not
Yeah.
about being able to, yeah, like respond in the perfect way. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so lastly, I've just popped on here. I'm going to send out some handouts
Hmm.
that just have like some recommended books for different ages and stages. And they cover the topics that we had listed in today's presentation, as well as those considerations of what to do before, during, and after shared reading experiences with kids.
Hmm.
Yeah, and if anything comes up from that, please reach out to me. You can get me via email, which is probably the best way between sessions. And yeah, we can love to support. So I think the only thing is to see if there's any questions or comments from your end.
No, all good. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, it was lovely connecting with you today. Yeah, it's an interesting topic to kind of delve into because I feel like um, it's something that we all do already, and to
Yeah.
to acknowledge that it's backed in such beautiful, science around connection. It's really kind of validating and permission giving
Hmm.
to lean into these tools. And yeah, keep supporting your kids the best way that you can.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I hope you have a lovely day. Thanks.
You too.
Okay. I'll try to end the call. Where am I?
I'll leave so then you can figure out the recording bit.
Thanks so much. Okay, all the
Bye.
best. Bye.